Hey everyone, welcome to Right Views podcast. I am Prasanna Naidu,
And I'm Rahul Devdhar.
and today we are going to discuss about the MiG-21 aircraft crashes. So MiG-21 is a famous aircraft, famous for multiple reasons, but one which is quite popular is its accidents. Recently there was a aircraft crash of where MiG-21 was involved, and the pilot expired due to that incident. So that's why it is also in the news again. It has been in the news for quite a while, from many years. To cite the exact data, it has been used from 1963 in India, like around 58 years, and there are around 843 aircrafts which are in use in the Indian Air Force, and there have been 285 losses due to accidents of these aircrafts. Okay, so that's a quite a huge number if we compare it to other accidents of other aircrafts which Indian Air Force has. So MiG-21 is, from what I know, is a Russian aircraft, I guess. Right, Rahul sir?
Yes, actually, MiG-21 is a Russian aircraft. It was designed in, I think, 1950s after the World War II, understanding of Air Force use in battle changed. Using that understanding, they designed the MiG-21, which was the interceptor role, which is to fight other aircrafts, basically. And India bought it in 1962-63. We started receiving our first batch of MiG-21s. And I think we bought over more than 800, what you said, more than 870 or 880 aircrafts over the from 1963 till 1988 or something like that. And we have lost around 270 of them. And at present, we have about 110 or so which are in operational use. The rest are not in operational use. So basically, the current version that we have is the upgraded version. The 1961 aircrafts are no longer in use, and the current version is the upgraded Bison version, which is in use at the moment.
Okay. But why? Let's get into the main reason why it's so popular. So why MiG-21s are vulnerable to such accidents, and why do the government and the Indian Air Force considers to use this aircraft still, even after looking at its record of these accidents?
See, in fact, if you look at MiG-21 as a normal aircraft, it is not unsafe. It's not a problematic aircraft. In fact, it is one of the most sturdiest aircraft that we have. So you can look at it from two different angles. One is the design. So it's called airframe, the basic structure of the aircraft. You can call it. It is called airframe. The design of the airframe is quite robust. Okay,
Mhm.
and the technology that is used is very hardy. Okay, so the aircraft itself is not a problem. The problem is that it is an old aircraft. So it's like when something is used, something is good, but you can't use it forever because it has everything has a serviceable life. And MiGs have a sturdy airframe and they can take a lot of abuse and all that. But what we are seeing is um, an aircraft which is old. So the airframe has gone through a lot of stresses, and it is not really fully 100% capable. So something that should have been let's say retired in 2004-5 is still being used in 2021, and that is the problem that we are facing now. So if you are using old equipment, it is liable for failure. It's not that it's a bad aircraft or anything, it's just that it is old, so it will fail. Now, in many cases where we have loss of pilot life, you have seen pilots trying to save civilians because these aircrafts are a danger if they crash into a civilian area. So the pilot is trying to save civilian lives, and in that process, he is, he has to
Ends up
sort
losing
of,
his life.
yeah, his own life. So it's a very complicated scenario, but that is what you get if you don't invest in your air force. And I mean, it's not like air force, the pilots know that you are running the aircraft, which is a high performance aircraft. It has its own challenges, and it's possible that you will be ending up with a high risk scenario. That's what they are training for. But it's not just a loss of aircraft which happens because you're flying very close to civilian area. Then you have to take care of the civilians, and in the process, pilot loses its life. It's not like okay, the ejection seat did not function, and the pilot was trapped in the aircraft, and it's not like that in most cases. But so if you look at MiG-29 per se, it's a very robust aircraft. So if it's in use, if it's in proper flying condition, and if you if it's working, let's say if you had a brand new MiG-21 today,
Hmm.
it would be a good aircraft as a aircraft, not as a fighter aircraft, but as an aircraft. So, in terms of physics, in terms of ability to fly, ability to reach the speeds that it reaches, it's a good aircraft. It's just that it's old aircraft, and it's like driving a Padmini. A new Padmini will still work. Premier Padmini. I mean, for those who don't know, it was a old car. It was again the same as 1950s model, but it kept on renewing. If you live in Mumbai, you can see them as taxis. Not
Okay,
as
okay,
much
okay. Got
now,
it. The black and
but
white, black and yellow taxis.
yeah, yellow or ambassador. If you
It
cross
was
India, if
a little bit similar to Ambassador, but yeah, there's a
it is
difference.
smaller. Yeah, it was a Fiat model.
Hmm.
So when it was launched, it was quite high tech. But see, there are high tech planes, but which are not good. But this was high tech, and it was quite stable. So MiG-21 is a very good aircraft for its time as an aircraft, not a fighter aircraft. Because fighter aircraft, when we evaluate fighter aircrafts, we must understand that the whole process of air, air warfare has changed.
Hmm.
So the requirements from an aircraft has changed. But first of all, any fighter aircraft is an aircraft. It is a plane. It has to fly, and it has to be, the pilot has to be able to manage it, maneuver it. And for that, MiG-21 is still as good as any plane. And that is the reason, actually, that is the reason why we still went for upgrading MiG-21 in 1990s, because it was still good, but what we had was the warfare had changed, so we needed more missiles. So earlier, when MiG-21 was launched in 1960, we still had like bombs, not smart bombs but dumb bombs. You still had to throw the bombs, and we had still some missiles which were simply fire, and the missile hopefully reaches the mark. That kind of warfare was more dominant. Whereas by the time we, in the 1990s, after Gulf War, we saw a precision bombing. We saw, aircrafts taking a different kind of a role to sort of set the stage for ground forces. So this kind of a role, which was earlier performed by bombers, so they would bomb everything. So that kind of a role, and we needed more precision weapons. We needed missiles. We needed beyond visual range, because the aircraft that MiG-21 would be going up against would fire 60 kilometers when they are 60, 100 kilometers far away. So you wouldn't even see them, and they would send out a missile against you. So by the time you realize that there is an aircraft or it has already fired a missile and the missile is already reaching you, and then you might be in a jam. So this is why we went for an upgrade, which we improved the onboard computers, improved the weapon systems, we improved the radars, and we
So
got
upgrade as in using MiG 21s only and upgrading the interior system, or replacing it with a new model.
So upgrade means the airframe. So in aircraft, there are three parts. Basically, one is the airframe, which is the aircraft itself without any computers or anything. So it is the aircraft, the wings, the fuel, the engine. That is the airframe. Airframe. Then there is the engine, which you put in the airframe, and the stability of this is basically what makes for a good aircraft. Now this is the MiG. Now the interior system, which helps the pilot get the information that you are being attacked, missile is coming towards you, that radar, that display which is in front of him, which tells him there is a aircraft in the vicinity which is trying to attack you, or there is a friendly aircraft which is under fire, radar and all these equipment. Those are the avionics. So that avionics has to be changed because the nature of the war has changed. And then there are these weapon systems, which are like earlier you have simple missiles, now you have precision guided missiles. So you need a laser pod. So you point the laser at one particular building or a window on that building, then the missile will find out that building and go and attack through that particular window. So you need a laser pod. Now laser pod has to be put somewhere. So that has to be attached. Then the missile needs to be controlled from the pilot's dashboard, sort of. So that needs to be upgraded. And then the pilot needs to be trained to manage all that. So all these things, the MiG is able to, MiG was not able when it was initially invented. But that had to be integrated with it. And once you integrate these kinds of systems in that, then you need modern computers to back it up, because this require a lot of, so they have to be stored somewhere in the aircraft only, right? So that computer has to sit somewhere. So usually it sits under the pilot's chair or something. But that's how you have to it has to be air conditioned, because it can't work under the 9G forces. It has to work in various locations, altitudes, all sorts of things. If it fails, then it's like difficult to operate. So if you compare this with F-16 airframe, if you take as an airframe, not an onboard computer or anything, F-16 is deliberately unbalanced. Okay, it won't fly. So without its computer and without its avionics, F-16 cannot fly. If you just put an engine and a stick and try to fly, you will crash it. Okay. So this is particularly developed so that it makes F-16 more maneuverable. Okay, so this is called a fly-by-wire technology. So there is a computer inside the F-16 which is called a fly-by-wire. I mean, we can call it the fly-by-wire computer. Its only job is to take input from the pilot, which there is a stick in F-16, okay? And that stick is not the real stick. It is only as an input. It's like a video game stick. It tells the computer what the pilot wants to do. That's all. So once the computer knows, the computer adjusts everything and flies the aeroplane. Okay. So in MiG-21, it's not like that. So the pilot flies the plane. In F-16, the computer flies the plane. And now what happens is, because
Even
it's
after
unstable.
this is even after upgradation.
No, upgradation has improved fly-by-wire capabilities, but inherently it is not a fly-by-wire as a design.
Right.
When it was designed, it was not fly-by-wire. It is manual thing. A fly-by-wire, there is another disadvantage. If you use electronic warfare, then the computers may get impacted if you are not properly protected and they are not, if there's an electromagnetic pulse, these are the weapons of future people are talking about, to disable and fry all the electronics within the planes and missiles. So then your computer will fail and it will get fried. You have to protect it properly. So let's say when you develop, like India is developing Tejas, and adequate protection for this is not made, then you will have a problem.
Right.
So F-16 has a variety of equipment on board with avionics, and that controls the aircraft. Okay. Now they have added this new technology, like when basically if you see in 91 war, so we can say aircraft technology changed drastically over last century. Okay. So in the First World War, it was pilot sitting in an open air plane. The plane had no windscreen, nothing. The pilot had to wear this glasses, which were like swimming glasses, skiing glasses, and he used to wear that, and he used to fly the plane. And in that, he had basically a shopping bag with lots of bombs, and he would seriously drop the bomb like this. It's not a joke. You can see some of these airplanes still they are available, but they are more used for these air shows and things like that. So they were very maneuverable, but they were like rotor planes. Okay, so they were not jet planes. So, and pilots would seriously, there would be a bag, and in that bag there would be like 50 bombs, 100 bombs, and then you would go and you would look down, ki, okay, I'm right on top, and you would drop the bomb. And that's how it was. So the anti or air, if you see ki, how this is the offensive capability of the aircraft. Okay. Now, how to defend against these aircraft? Basically, because the aircraft is so low on the ground, you can fire a gun at it, right? So we had that anti-aircraft gun. So you had that guns which can fire at the aircraft, and the aircraft would get hit, and the pilot had to eject and all these. So this was the first. Then they put guns on the aircraft itself, so that the aircraft can fire back, okay, to another aircraft. So if another aircraft comes, then it has a guns, then you can have a dogfight. So this dogfight technology was very critical, because then you can shoot the aircraft before it drops all the bombs. And if you don't need to hit multiple things, you just, because he is sitting on 100 bombs or grenades or whatever kind of things. So you just, if one or two bullets hit him, the whole plane will explode anyways. So that's the old technology. So in Second World War, Germany with advanced technology used this strategy called Blitzkrieg, where they would send 100, 500 aircrafts, and Japan also used this in Pearl Harbor. Like 100, 500 aircraft would come, each dropping bombs here and there, and it would, these were automatic. The bombs would drop automatically. Okay, so the pilot just needs to press a button and it would drop. So these kinds of strategies were developed. Now, in Vietnam War, they tried to have some sort of a strategy. It's a complicated thing. We can discuss it later. But the next main tactical change came in 91 Gulf War. Now, where the F-16s would know where to bomb, what to bomb, and they would go and just precisely hit out the radar locations, they precisely hit out the bunkers. They would in fact have a missile which drills deep into the bunker before it explodes. It won't explode directly if it touches the ground. It would dig deep, 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 and then break the bunker, and then it would explode. So these kinds of technologies were available. Then we had something called as Tomahawk cruise missiles, where satellite navigation was used integrated with the missile. So these planes and missiles were integrated with the satellites. So US had a network of satellites across the globe, which now we use for our GPS, Uber, and all that we call the same earlier these kinds of satellites were used to navigate the aircrafts and say, ki, okay, this is their main oil refinery, let's bomb it. So the Tomahawk cruise missile would know, ki, this is the oil refinery, we will have to attack it or something like that. So this kind of technology was used in 91 war. And the beauty of it was that the ground troops would not attack. The first entire attack would be air superiority to establish that the enemy cannot fly its planes or create its shield of missiles. We will take out all of that, and then our troops will go. When the enemy is completely blind, it can't see, no radars, no installations, and then our troops will go. So to keep the harm on troops less. Now, if you see, these kinds of technologies are not easy to replicate on a MiG-21 because MiG-21 is still World War II. It's an answer to World War II. Okay, so it has got high speed because it wants to chase all the attacking aircrafts. It's called interceptor. So if 3 aircrafts come into your airspace, guess which aircraft will you scramble? It's a MiG-21 because it is designed for this.
You scramble. What is that?
Meaning you will send your MiG-21s after him. So your MiG-21s can hunt him down because this is the role for which MiG-21 is made. If you have 3 aircrafts trying to enter your space, your radar has detected. If there are like 3 F-16 or any type of aircraft, the best aircraft to hunt them in the sky. Now in the sky, see on the ground it is one-dimensional. Okay, you want to hunt something, it's like one-dimensional area. In sky, it is a 360-degree hunting. So MiG-21s are very good at it. In fact, the better version was, you can say MiG-25s. MiG-25s was the next level, next version, next generation of interceptors developed by Mikoyan only. It's MiG-25. Those were able to go towards space, and they would go at a speed 3.5 times the speed of sound. And they were used for reconnaissance because by the time the enemy knows that your aircraft is in your space.
Wait a second. 3.5 times the speed of sound.
Yeah, Mach 3.5. So MiGs and all, mostly nowadays aircraft go at twice the speed of sound, that too only for short bursts. So these, no airplane flies at twice the speed of sound all the time because that takes a lot of fuel. What they do is, if they are being chased or if they are being hunted, then they can fly. Or if they want to intercept something, then they can fly really fast. They can outfly a missile. Okay, so this was important in old times. Now what happens is, after 91 was one kind of aircraft, but now we realize that everything is beyond visual range. You don't even know what is there. So you don't even engage any aircraft by looking at it. Everything is on radar. Okay, so if your radar cannot detect it, you are dead, because his radar can detect you and he can kill you also before you know it, and he will go away back. And the missiles, you will fire 5 missiles, you will not be able to contain them. So this was a technique. That is why the most modern aircraft today, which is F-22 and F-35, they don't have any high speed capabilities. They have highly potent radar. So they can see 200, 300 kilometers. The infrared radar can see 1,000 kilometers also. So that is the kind of nature of capabilities that they have. They don't want to come near you. That's the whole idea. So their invisibility, stealth is only designed that they can come as far as they want to, but they don't want to come near you. They want to stay away and fire missiles from far away. And they don't need even to fire missiles because they just need to get information, which we'll come to that in another. So in Desert Storm, which is 91 Iraq war, all these capabilities changed. Now these aircraft started gathering information, working with satellites, and our MiGs were only single, the pilot would be the only information. So we needed to equip them with information, with radars, with information, with beyond visual range missiles. So we had this Bison version. So look at it this way. You have a airframe which is good. You put it high quality equipment on it. Our equipment is not that high quality, but it is still good quality. You still have a good aircraft. Okay.
Hmm.
Now, if you have such kind of aircraft, you can still manage. Okay. Now, so Tejas is a replacement of this. So we need a good air. So the problem with Tejas was that we did not even have a good airframe. Okay. Now, because developing an airframe is a very high skill thing. Once you develop an airframe and once you develop, uh, avionics, then you are halfway there. Still not full, only halfway. You have got a thing which flies, basically. So Tejas is got something that it flies and it has fly by wire, just like F-16. We have copied that kind of technology. It is unstable, so you can use fly by wire, and then it becomes more stable and more maneuverable, more agile. So if a missile is directly coming at you, you can quickly move out, and the computer can take care of you. All these things are available in Tejas, but we have to still manufacture it, right? So that is itself a long drawn process. Now, in the meantime, while we are developing Tejas and upgrading MiGs, the war has changed once again. Now the war is no longer about how many missiles your plane. Suppose you and me both are in the two different planes flying. You have two missiles, I have just one missile, and I am in the front and I see an enemy plane. Okay. So in normal, I would, maybe I have no missiles. I'm just flying ahead and I don't have any missiles. And then, I spot a plane. Okay, enemy plane. Then it was like up to me. Then we had radio silence because then you can't, otherwise the enemy will know, right, that you are there. So it was very difficult to ensure coordination. Now we have high speed networks in Gulf War where one pilot can talk to another pilot or computers can talk and exchange their information. Today we have information where the computer decides, even if I have noticed or not, okay, that plane, enemy plane, it will decide that there is an enemy plane, it has to be shot down. I don't have the missile, it will activate a missile on your plane
Yeah.
and kill that plane because it's all integrated.
Hmm. Hmm.
Or if let's say even you don't have missiles and there is a anti-aircraft installation on the border, so it will, instead of activating missiles from our planes, it will activate that anti-aircraft missile and hit that plane without even us knowing about it. It will then inform, boss, there was this plane, I destroyed it. So this is the next level.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Now this is still today. In the future, you will see that there are huge drone swarms coming at you. So you are in a plane, 1,000 drones come at you, all costing $5,000. You are in an aircraft which costs $100 million. And 5,000, there are 1,000 drones of 5,000. It is $5 million versus your $100 million aircraft. You will be dead before you can shoot any one of them. So this is the kind of techniques are being developed. And now how will MiGs? Yes, it's a very good airframe, good design. Like it's like a Rolls Royce. Okay, it's like a Rolls Royce is a good design. But
Hmm.
can we, that old car with a crank, we have to change it. Now we have to have like push button start and auto Apple CarPlay and Google Car, whatever that Google Maps should be there. Otherwise, people will have no use for that car. So this is the same thing that is being done. Uh, that is the requirement. So now we are the Rafales that we've got. They have capabilities of integration, information integration. How much we are going to use them and how well equipped are we to use them is a different point altogether, because we have French Rafales and Mirage, we have Russian Sukhois, Russian MiG-21s, Indian Tejas with Israeli radars, and American missiles, Russian missiles, DRDO missiles, okay, and French something, Russian something else, Israeli something third, all are going to talk. And hopefully the pilot has got updated information.
We have discussed
This is
this in our drone warfare episode 2. All this.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is going to be quite complicated, but to reach that level, it is going to take a lot of time. So currently, we have not even replaced all the MiG 21s.
Yeah.
So we are still in 1963 aircrafts.
So imagine this, ki, I think it was 1959 aircraft, which we got in 1963.
63, huh.
So it's a 1959 aircraft pitted against F-16, which is basically 1979 aircraft. We have Sukhois, which is 1989 aircraft. Rafales are also 1989-91 aircraft. And we are fighting in 2021 against Chinese aircraft, which are a copy of F-22, which is the latest 2006 aircraft, and J whatever, which is a bad copy of a good aircraft. So that is the question. Okay, we have a good working aircraft of old vintage versus a bad copy of a good aircraft. That kind of thing we have to deal with.
But
The good thing about Chinese is that all of the things are Chinese. Okay. The copy, they might have copied, but all the things are Chinese. It's not like ours. One is Israeli, one is French, one is Russian, one is American. I mean, maybe that, whatever anti-aircraft warfare China will throw at us, some system will be working because, it can't defeat all the systems.
So it would be easier to communicate. That's what you are saying.
Yeah, integration will be much better for Chinese. I don't know. Ideally, it should be better. But knowing Chinese, we cannot be sure. So
no, but what's the main reason of our ministers not taking this decision of upgrading to the newer technology as soon as possible? Why are we lagging so behind? Is it due to the budget, no proper allocation?
see, there are 2-3 reasons. One is basically we were a corrupt country. Okay,
We were.
At least defense procurement has been after Manohar Parrikar came up. Defense procurement has been sort of cleaned up.
But this corruption will be there in every country. Only the proportions vary and all those things. But so
No, but if you see the countries with very good technology, they are not corrupt. Okay. Now their corruption, I mean, like, people say ki US is also corrupt. Like F-35 cost $1 trillion program. So, which is all fine. I mean, that is a cost overrun. So Americans are corrupt in a weird way. Okay. So what they'll say ki, let's design, I mean, how to explain this? So they say, let's design a bicycle. Okay. So that we can quickly run around, go, exercise and shopping, these kinds of things. And they will start the project, and by the time you end it, they will have a Harley Davidson on steroids. It can go 5,000 miles in 1 gallon, 1 tank full of fuel. It can launch so many things. It has got radio, TV, something. Boss, it was supposed to be exercise bike. Na? Yes, it also has got some pedals to exercise while you are going at 5,000. Something like that. They'll crazy. They will make up. So it started out as a exercise. I mean, sort of a simple bike to go around. And by the time you get it, it will be like a huge motorcycle kind of a thing. That is their corruption. Okay. But in that process, they will invent like 50 different technologies to build that. Our corruption is a negative corruption. So we start with saying ki we will get a bicycle and we will get only cycle with one wheel. So not many people can drive it. It's a unicycle. So it's like, boss, this is not a cycle. This is a cycle. This is called unicycle. So it is a cycle. But I can't drive this. You have to learn how to balance on one wheel. So no, this is the cycle that we have. So you have to learn. So this is ours is a reductive thing, and we will not get proper parts. Now imagine with one wheel, the cycle will go, and that one wheel will break because it's of substandard quality. We will have no cycle. That's our thing. So this is what actually created this problem. In 1963, we were desperately, we realized that we had very old technology, and all these World War type planes we had to sort of rework. So we got the best planes. We thought Russia was trying to get, both US and Russia were trying to get India into their system, and we sort of tried the MiG-21s were very good planes for the time. They were cheap, they were reliable, and Russian planes are like always, you can run them in desert, you can run them in all sorts of things, it will be easy for you. So we went with that. In late 60s and early 70s, the KGB sort of, got a lot of our politicians involved in their corrupt practices. There were more KGB agents in India in 1970s than anywhere in the world, is what is said. So, and all of them were on, Russian payroll, and Russia was bribing them in some way or the other. And that's why we got 800 of those MiGs. We could not have, it's now we see 800 MiGs, and then sort of a reliance or a dependence on Russia was developed in
But
1960s.
all the 800 mix would not have been bought in that year itself, right?
No, from 1960, we must have bought some, but then when the KGB infiltration is sort of complete till about 86, 87, I think it was India, not 86, 87, 83, 84, you can say. India was completely under KGB, politicians were involved with all these communist Russians. So over the period of next 20 years, we procured more and more planes from Russia. So, and Russia gave us good terms also. It's not like Russia did not give us good terms. The planes were good, the terms were good.
No, the problem is not Russia and the weapons or aircraft. The problem was communism.
But Russia had good weapons. Anyways, so once you have these, you are completely reliant and dependent on this, and you have developed a system of corruption.
Yeah.
Okay. And this corruption, now anything you do, you are amplifying that. That is the time when you have this Bofors scandal, right? Which was the one which brought Rajiv Gandhi down. So you tried to acquire these howitzers from Sweden, and we ended up in a big problem. There was allegations. What I'm saying is, even if you say there was no corruption, but the minute it started, the whole procurement process froze, because now everyone is looking over their shoulders, trying to see, I'm not, it has to be established, I'm not corrupt. So everyone has to, stay. This is the reason why I'm asking for this reason. Now, you cannot state in military secrets. See, I'm anticipating a drone warfare. I want to order 5,000 drones. Can you state it in an anti-corruption document, which will be public domain, and China will read it? Or and that time, this is how that time it was Pakistan. Pakistan was a rich country that time. Their per capita income was more than India. So Pakistan would read this, India is buying drones in 91 because they think drone is the future. What are we doing? That's what they would think, right? Today China would do things like that. India is buying drones, 5,000 drones. This is what it is. So we can't say all this. So which means the process has to be process cannot be transparent, but it has to be non-corrupt. So defense procurement is a unique process. It cannot be transparent, otherwise it's gone, right? There's no secret about it.
Hmm.
But it has to be clean. So how to ensure that? And that is what Parikar was more, inclined to do: clean up and make sensible acquisitions. So you don't need, and the thing is, another thing what happens is, because if you are getting percentage money, so if I'm getting 2% of whatever car you buy, will I sell you Maruti 800 or will I sell you Rolls Royce? I'll sell you Rolls Royce, but you don't have roads for Rolls Royce. You have roads for Maruti 800. You should buy Maruti 800. Then no one will tell you. So we don't want aircraft which are like really high end, but one aircraft is lost, which means 200 million gone. We can't afford that much. We need cheap but multiple, the quantum of number of aircraft we need is more. So that's what, because we have many places. Now see, you might have a very ultra high end F-22. We have only one F-22. Okay. If China is attacking in Arunachal, that F-22 is there. And then Pakistan attacks in Jaipur, what will you fly? MiG-21. So that is what we do. So that can't be. Instead, have a level of decent aircraft which can have, there are 50 aircrafts in Rajasthan border, there are 50 in this place, there are 50 in Andaman, there are 15 other places. So more aircraft is what we need just for operational purpose. And that's why this, now we have a squadron, what we can say, authorized squadron capacity of 53 or something, and we are at 32. Each squadron is roughly about 16 to 18, depending on how much you count. Okay.
Aircraft, yeah.
So you are already 20 squadrons short. Okay, already with 100 MiGs. We want to replace those 100 MiGs. We want to replace all the Jaguars, which are like, Jaguar is 1950s. If MiG is 1959, Jaguar is probably 49. So those have to be also replaced. So all those things have to go and change, and then you will get this final number. And if you look at the real capacity, considering our ocean reach and our borders, I mean, we need to have at least 2,000 fighter aircraft. Fighter aircraft meaning not just bombers, all these together. Now, how will we reach 2,000 aircraft? We are at the moment 600 aircraft country. So for that, we need economic power. If we are economically, rich, we can afford 2,000 aircraft, and then we can sort of project power.
We'll be having
2000.
around 1,000, no? At least, I guess.
Who? We?
Yeah.
600. 600. Don't count the transport planes and helicopters and all those things. Count the fighter aircrafts like, MiG-21s, Jaguars, Tejas, MiG-29, Sukhois.
600 you are saying would be only MiG-21s, no? Apart from MiG-20?
No. Only 100 are working. Don't go by that.
Acha, okay.
Those are all old done. They are just, museum. They are in museum, many of them.
So out of 500-600 whatever we have, only 100 MiG-21s are working now.
Yeah, there are only maybe 110 or something is there. I'll tell you the number. Exactly, जो India का at present aircraft capacity is not much. We are a total 600 capacity. Total aircraft is 600. Let me search this. So this is what we have. We have roughly 107 MiGs that they were saying, around 120 Jaguars, 45 Mirages, 66 MiG-29s, 22 Tejas, 272 Sukhois, and 23 Rafales. That is what we have.
Okay. So yeah.
In fact, some of them have been deactivated because you wanted parts. One part is missing, so sort of cannibalize another aircraft and make one active proper aircraft. That's what we are doing,
Okay.
and we need to be around 2000 aircraft air force. Now, the nature, like what we had discussed, the nature of air force also has changed. So in the future, we will not have as many manned aircrafts. We'll have more unmanned aircrafts, which are remotely piloted aircrafts. So not drones. Drones are still there, but you'll have a platform. So or you can say a manned aircraft will be a platform.
It would
Okay.
be like a video game. Someone with a remote control and operating it. Something
It
like
is.
that.
It is like, for example, the Predator drones and all. They are operated from US. The pilot is in US.
Mm-hmm.
The drone is operating in Gulf or wherever it is operating in Syria, Iraq, where the drone is operating. The pilot is in US. So pilot is not on the ground. So this
Right.
is how it is. That's why they have, like, then you can have shifts. You don't need because pilot training and pilot loss is a huge problem.
Right.
So now you can have pilots working in shifts. Just like, you don't have to go anywhere. You're sitting there. You just have to go to the bunker, use the joystick and video game. You have to play 8-hour video game, and then that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, that's the way these people are remotely piloted aircraft they're using. But you can imagine that now you will have an aircraft with a set of drones, like a aircraft carrier we have in
Got it. Yeah.
Navy. So which has got, like, as a platform. So
Hmm.
it is the main platform, and then there are aircrafts and ships which protect it, and there are aircrafts which go and attack. So we'll have a manned aircraft as a station in the air, and it will give out all these drones which will attack. So your attack range will increase, and you will be in maybe in Indian airspace. Suppose you want to do Balakot in, let's say, 2022 or 25. You will do it with the modern thing. So you will have your aircraft which will be sitting in India, okay, on the Indian side of the border. It will send out drones for the next 100 kilometers, and the drones will have the missiles, which will strike the missiles and come back. Balakot is the wrong example, because Balakot, you can directly fire a missile there. You can directly go. It's a very close. Pakistan has got no distance. Okay, you can just fly across Pakistan and you will reach Afghanistan before you know it. So it's more important in China. So you can stay on Indian side of border, send your drones into Tibet, and attack the airfield in Tibet without losing any money. And these drones are nowadays we have kamikaze drone which explode. So that technology is also gone. So if you see Gaza, they use dumb rockets against smart defense, overwhelming. That is the name of the game. So if your missile system can tackle 90 missiles out of 100, I will send 500 missiles. So 50 will land and kill people. But because they are dumb and cheap, you are good. But if you lose 50, 500 planes, you will be dead. So you better lose 500 drones.
Hmm. 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 Hmm.
So suppose you have, like, MiG-25 would fly at an altitude of 35,000 feet or something like that, 35,000 meters at supersonic speeds. Before you know it, it will drop 50 drones. Okay. Now, dropping a drone is, because drones are active, they don't need to fly till they reach 1,000, 5,000 feet. And then they can navigate. They are also not dumb. And then they can explode. So you have different kind of mechanisms. So those kinds of things need to be simulated, and for all those kinds, a MiG 21 is now, it's no longer that the airframe is good. That also is logic is not enough to keep it. So now it is actually totally, the airframe also has lost its relevance. The avionics and all had long lost its relevance. We had replaced them, but now the entire game is changing, and we want something with a new game which can play the new game. And we have things in sort of development, the AMCA and Tejas 2. The Mark II variant, and hopefully they will sort of get the technology in a good, they'll have a good base to work with for the next 20-25 years.
Okay, I think we have covered MiG 21s in a lot of depth, and I think that's quite enough to know what's happening with MiG 21s in India and why is that happening. So let's hope for the best, and we get the proper budget allocation for upgradation of our aircrafts and buying new aircrafts, so that we are not living with 1960s and 70s aircrafts in 2021 and 25. Let's see what happens next. Thank you all for listening to this podcast. And if you want to check out other episodes, you can do that on YouTube and all other podcast platforms. Do check it out. We have other, like, we have covered similar topics before, like drone warfare and all. You can check it out too. Thank you all for listening. Thanks.
Thank you.